Hi guys! In this pattern I'll show you how to make this easy to make top. To start, take some calculations, but once you have done that it's no longer difficult and it goes nice and fast. We start with a square yoke with a V in the front, which you can make less deep if you want. And the pattern is in US terms. If you like this tutorial, give me a thumbs up, and if you aren't subscribed yet and you like what you see, hit the subscribe button and the bell button next to it so you know when I upload a new video. If you have a question or an idea for a next tutorial, let me know in the comments down below. For this ivy top, I used Ice Yarns Baby Antibacterial. It is a 100% antibacterial Draylon. 100 grams is 280 meters. The recommended hook is a 3.5 or 4 millimeter, but I'm going to use a 5 millimeter crochet hook. It is a number 2 yarn. If you want to use a different yarn, then pick a number 2 yarn as well. And I use 4 stitch markers, and the color is Hunter Green. I'll put a link to the yarn in the description box down below. So let's begin. So we start the pattern with some calculations. First, measure really loosely around your neck. So not tight around the neck, but really loosely. Write that number down. For me that is 52 centimeters or about 20-21 inches. Then grab your yarn and hook and chain the amount of stitches you need to get this length. So chain until the length of your chain is the length you wrote down here. For me that was 80 chains. So that is the number we use to calculate our starting chain. So this 80 chains, we divide that by 4. And if you have 82 or 73 or 96 chains, the following steps are always the same. So it doesn't matter how many chains you have here, the steps that are following are always the same. So 80, we divide that by 4, that is 20. That's easy, but maybe you have an uneven number, so you have to make it a whole number, so 19, 18, 23, but you can't have a half stitch, so 20 and a half, that isn't possible, so you have to make it 20 or 21. When you have a half stitch, go down or up to make it a whole number. It doesn't matter if it is even or uneven, but it has to be a whole number. So this 20 is for our 4 sides. So when we draw a square and we don't close the front because there will be a V. So this is your neckline. So we have 20, 20, 20, 20 because we divided by 4. But we need a longer neck part than shoulder part. So how we make the side part, how we calculate that, then we take that 20 and subtract 5. Always subtract 5. So that is 15. So your side parts have 15 stitches. We subtracted 5 from this side and 5 from that side. So 5 and 5 is 10. So we have 10 stitches. We subtracted from the 2 sides. We subtract the 4 corners. So 1 corner, 2 corners, 3 corners, 4 corners. So 10 minus 4 is 6. So these 6 stitches we add to the 20 from the beginning. So for the back part, you have 26. So the 20 plus the 6 we subtract from the sides. Now we have to decide how many stitches we start at the front. I start with 1 on this side and 1 on this side because I want a pretty deep V. If you want a less deep V, then make 2 stitches here and 2 stitches here. or even 3. So you can also make 3 stitches here and 3 stitches here. This side needs to be the same as this side. So if you make this one 2, then this one needs to be 2 as well. Then we only need to add all these numbers to know our beginning chain. So 1, 2, plus 15 is 17, plus 1 is 18. We have 18 on the other side as well. So that is 36. And plus 26 from the back is 62. So we start with 62 chains plus 1. So this is your starting chain. This chain is only to start your calculations, so we don't use the chain of 80, but we work with this chain. So this is my starting chain and plus 1. So calculate your own size, and then we start our pattern. To start the pattern, you make a slip knot, slide it on your hook, and I need to chain 62 plus 1. Maybe you need to chain 60 plus 1 or 63 or 73 or 71 plus 1, then do that. So I need 62 plus 1, so we chain the amount we wrote down, 5, 6, 7, 60, 61, 62 plus 1. So there you have your starting chain. Now we turn our chain, and I like to work in the back bumps, but you can work in the front as well. That is totally fine. I prefer working in the back bumps. The loop on your hook doesn't count as a stitch. The first stitch we skip and we make a single crochet in the next. So this is our first front stitch, so this stitch. Now we make our corner stitch, and a corner stitch is 3 single crochet in 1 stitch. So insert in the next, back bump, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Another stitch in the same chain, and in the second one you put in a stitch marker. This is the place where you make your next corner stitch. We need 1 more stitch in this stitch because we need 3 in the same stitch to make our corner, like this. And now we need 15 to make our side. So we make 15 stitches in the next 15 chains. So just single crochet for the next 15. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I need 2 more. 14 and 15. And now we are at our next corner. So we need to make this corner stitch. So in the next stitch, 3 single crochet. So that's 1. That's 2 in the same stitch, and the second one gets a stitch marker to mark our corner, and then 1 more single crochet in the same stitch. And then we need, or I need 26 stitches for the back. Maybe you have 27 or 28 or 20 or 31, then make that amount of stitches for the back. So I need 26 in the next 26 chains. (25) and the last for me 26, and now we make a corner stitch again. So in the next 3 single crochet in the same stitch. So that's one, another one, mark that second one with a stitch marker, and another one in the same stitch. So we have 3, and then we made this, and now we need to make this side part. So I have to make 15 in the next 15 chains. So here we go again, 15 single crochet in the next 15 chains. 15. Now we have our corner stitch. So 3 single crochet in the same stitch, 1 and 2. Mark that second one with your last stitch marker, and another one in that same stitch. And now I have 1 stitch left because I chose to make 1 at the front. So if you have 2 or 3, then you have 2 or 3 stitches left here. And make a single crochet in the last stitches of your chain. So 1 for me. And now you have your beginning. This is the beginning of your neckline. Like this. And there will be a V here, of course, also. So that is row 1. For row 2. For row 2, you pick up your work, chain 1 to bring up your yarn. The chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, and turn your work. And now we make 2 single crochet in the first stitch. So into the first stitch, make 1, and in the same stitch another one, because we want to increase at the front to create the V. So 2 single crochet in the beginning. That is also the case at the end, so we make 2 single crochet in the last stitch as well. Then we have 1 stitch left before the corner stitch, so in this stitch we also make a single crochet. Then you can take out the stitch marker, and in this stitch we make a 3 single crochet. So 1, 2, and in the second single crochet you replace your stitch marker, so you know there needs to be your corner stitch in the next row. And we make another single crochet in the same stitch to complete your corner stitch. So we have 3 in this one, and now it's just making single crochet stitches all the way across until the stitch before the stitch marker. So in every stitch across, make a single crochet, and the last stitch before the stitch marker. Then take out your stitch marker and make 3 single crochet in this stitch to make your new corner stitch. So that's 1, 2, replace your stitch marker in the second of the 3, and 3 in the same stitch. And now a single crochet all the way across until you are at the next stitch marker. So in every stitch, just a normal single crochet. I have 1 stitch left before my corner stitch, and then I completed the back part. So 1 more for the back. Then take out your corner, or take out the stitch marker and make your new corner stitch 1, 2, replace your stitch marker, and finish your corner stitch. So you have 3 in total in this stitch. Then single crochet all the way across until you reach the next stitch marker. Okay, take out the stitch marker and make your new corner stitch. 1, 2, replace, and 3 in the same stitch. Then I have 2 stitches here and a chain 1. So the chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, so we ignore that one. Maybe you have 3 stitches here or 4 stitches because you made 2 or 3 at the beginning and at the end. Then you need to finish your stitches until the end, but the last stitch always gets 2 single crochet. So we increase at the beginning and at the end. So I have here 1 before the last one, and the last one gets 2 single crochet. So this is 1 and another one in the same stitch to increase and make your V-neck. And there you have your row 2 done. And now it is just repeating row 2. Starting a chain 1, turn your work. The chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch. Into the first stitch you make 2 single crochet, then 1 single crochet in every stitch until the stitch marker. In the stitch with the stitch marker you make always 3 single crochet and replace the stitch marker in the middle of the 3. Then 1 single crochet all the way across to the other stitch marker and make a new corner stitch again. Then all the way across this way, corner stitch all the way here, then corner stitch, and then make single crochet stitches until the last one, and the last stitch gets 2 single crochet. If you find it hard to skip the chain 1 at the end, so you accidentally see it for a stitch, you can place a stitch marker in the chain 1, so you know the stitch marker is the end of the row. So don't work the stitch marker then you never increase too much at the end. So that is a little trick to keep you on track. Okay, so repeat this until, let me show you when you fold it like this. So this is the front, this, and this is the back, and here are your armholes. Well, these armholes are too small, and this is too small to fit your body. And we need to work increases at the beginning and the end, so these 2 points meet up when you lay it flat on the table like this. These 2 ends meet up, so you have a complete V at the front. So when those 2 meet up, then I'll meet you back. So keep working in rows, so back and forth, making just single crochets, nothing too fancy, making an increase at the beginning and at the end of your rows, and making corner stitches in every corner. And when you lay your work flat on the table and the points, the 2 ends, touches each other in the point, so in the point of the V, then I'll meet you back and show you how to move on. Okay, I've worked my yoke until the 2 front pieces touches each other. You can check if you are done working this part by counting the amount of stitches in the back of your yoke and then count the stitches of the 2 front pieces. Those 2 together needs to be the same as the back part. So the same amount of stitches. And then you know this part of your yoke is done. Now we start working in the round. So we need to attach this side to this side. So you can do that by making a slip stitch in this first stitch, or you can do it like I do, and that is starting with a new stitch. From now on we work in a knit stitch or the waistcoat stitch, and for that stitch you, let me show you, you insert your hook. Normally you insert your hook in the stitch, so under 2 loops like this. For the knit stitch or the waistcoat stitch you insert in the V in the front. You see here, so here is your stitch, and down you see the V. You insert your hook in the middle of the V, and it is a little bit difficult this first row to get your hook through, but just take your time, and I'll show you a trick so this part will be easier in the next round. So in the middle of the V, insert your hook like this, then yarn over, pull through, and now you pull up this loop a little bit taller so it is the same height as the loop that is already on your hook. So this loop is bigger than this one. Then instead of yarning over, pull through, we yarn under. So slide your hook behind your yarn and pull through like this. So we no longer make increases at the beginning and at the end, because we make this the same as the back now. So we only make increases at the corner stitches. So we keep making 3 single crochet in every corner. Okay, to the next. So here is your stitch, and you see here is the V on the front. So insert your hook in the middle of the V. This first round is a little bit difficult to insert your hook, but take your time and then you will be fine. Yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that loop a little bit bigger than the loop on your hook, and then instead of yarning over, pull through, you yarn under and pull through. Then your next stitch, and down you see the V in the front. So insert in the middle of that V, pull through like this, yarn over, pull up a loop, oops, pull up a loop, pull that loop a little bit higher than the loop on your hook. Instead of yarning over, yarn under and pull through the both loops on your hook. We go to the next stitch, and instead of inserting in the stitch, you look for the V beneath the stitch and you insert in the middle of the V. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Oops, I wasn't in the middle of the V. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Oh, still not in the middle. Okay, try one more time. Okay, insert, pull up a loop. Make sure this loop is a little bit taller than the loop on your hook. Yarn under and pull through. Go to the next stitch, and instead of inserting in the stitch, you look for the V beneath underneath, and there you insert your hook. And sometimes it is difficult to get your hook through. You can pick it up like this, or you push through the point of your hook. I don't have a 5mm crochet hook with a pointy tip or with a sharp hook, but if you have that, it is easier to pull through, especially this first round. Okay, so pick up the stitch, insert in the front V, pull up a loop, yarn under, pull through 2. And this is it. Just repeat these steps. And if you have difficulty inserting your hook, take your time, be patient, and it will be fine. Repeat this all the way around. When you are at the stitch with a stitch marker, then I'll meet you back and show you how to cover the corners. So keep working, making knit stitches in every stitch across until you are at the stitch with a stitch marker, and then I'll meet you back. I've worked one side of knit stitches, and you see by making the yarn over yarn under, the stitches are nice and straight. And now I am at the corner stitch, and in the corner you keep making normal single crochets. You can make knit stitches in this corners, but that is really hard to insert your hook. Take out your stitch marker and make your normal corner stitch. So 3 single crochet in the corner, and put in your stitch marker in the second one to mark your next corner, and then 3 single crochet. Now we move on. We make knit stitches or waistcoat stitches again, so insert in this, in the V again, and you can help it a bit by pulling up the first loop of the V, next stitch in your V, insert in the V and pull up a loop, yarn under, pull through 2. Continue making, let me lay it like this. So when you put it over your head, the 2 stitch markers can touch each other under your armpits. So when you fold it in half, these 2 touch each other under your armpit. This is not big enough for your arms yet, and this is not big enough to fit your body yet. So keep working in rounds until the 2 stitch markers touch each other easily under your armpits. Then it is time to move on to the next step. So keep working in the rounds, not closing your rounds in the knit stitch until when you put it over your head, the 2 stitch markers can touch each other easily under your armpit, and then I'll meet you back and show you how to move on. Okay, I worked my way around until I have the width I need, so when I put it over my head, and the 4 stitch markers, so 2 on this side and 2 on the other side, can touch each other under my arms without stretching too much. For me, the width is 48 centimeters or about 19 inches. Maybe you need more or less. Just work up the amount you need to make sure the 2 stitch markers touch each other under your arms, and then you're ready for the next step. For the next step, we work our way to the first stitch marker, then the stitch with the stitch marker, we use that to attach it to the other side. So when you fold it in half, we cross over, so we skip the side part now and we cross over and work the back side. And then at the other side exactly the same. Add the stitch marker, cross over and work the other half of the front. And then it's just keep working in the rounds until you think the length is the length you like. So let's do that. Just work until you reach the first stitch marker. And for this first part I used exactly one ball of yarn. So, and that is for size small to medium. So keep working until you are at the first stitch marker, and then I'll show you how to move on. Okay, I worked in the last stitch before the stitch with the stitch marker. So in the stitch with the stitch marker, you don't insert in the stitch, but in the front of the V, like you worked all around so far. So pick up your next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn under, pull through 2. And now instead of taking out the stitch marker and make 3 stitches in the corner stitch, you can take out the stitch marker. We don't need that anymore. And now we go to the other side. So we skip the side part and jump right into the stitch with a stitch marker on the other side. Then turn your work. So the back side is facing you, the back of your shirt. Skip the stitch with a stitch marker and pick up the first V you see. So this one, put in your hook and make a knit stitch, just like you did before. You can take out the stitch marker on this side as well. And you see you attached the front and the back. So you have an arm opening here. Now it is just 1 stitch in every stitch across, making the knit stitch until you reach the next stitch marker. And then I'll show you one more time how to attach the back to the front. Okay, I am at the last stitch. I have 1 stitch left on this side, so make your stitch on this side. Then take out the stitch marker and then skip the side part. So skip this part and then we go straight to the stitch next to the stitch marker. So turn your work. So your work is on the front again. So you have the front of the work in front of you, and then here's the stitch with the stitch marker. So we insert our hook in the V next to the stitch with the stitch marker to make our next knit stitch. And sometimes you need to help that stitch a little bit because it gets tight. In my case it gets tight. Maybe you don't have that problem, but I do. Okay, insert and then and then work your knit stitch. Remove your stitch marker and then you see you attached the front to the back. Now it is really simple. Just keep working in the rounds, so making 1 stitch in every stitch. So when you are at the bottom of the arm, so under the arm, just make your knit stitches and keep working in the rounds. Keep working in the knit stitch until your work is 2 inches shorter than the length you like. And then we start to make the bottom trim. I make a little cropped version, not too short, but you can make it any length you like. Just work the knit stitch until you have 2 inches shorter than the length you want for your piece. And then we start with the bottom trim. Work your knit stitches to the side seam so you can't see where you start your trim. So work your knit stitches until you reach a side, and then we start the border. When you are at the side seam, then I flip my work so you can see better. We made a knit stitch in this stitch, and then we make a slip stitch in the next stitch. So insert your hook in the next stitch, and then instead of making a knit stitch, you make a slip stitch, and that makes your bottom straight again. And now it's time to make the border at the end, so the trim at the bottom. And we make the same rows of single crochet as we did for the yoke. So we ended with a slip stitch here, and now we insert in the normal stitch, so no longer in the V's, but insert in the normal stitch like this, and then make a single crochet. Mark your first stitch with a stitch marker, so it is easy to find your first stitch when you are at the end of the round. And then just single crochet in every stitch around until you are at the stitch marker again. And then I'll meet you back to show you how to finish your top. I've worked my way around. I have one more stitch here, and then the slip stitch from the previous round, and then my first single crochet. So you make 1 single crochet in the last stitch. We skip the slip stitch, and then take out your stitch marker and make a slip stitch in the first stitch. Like this. Then chain 1 and turn your work. So here is the slip stitch. We skip that one and we insert in the first stitch of the, or actually the last stitch of the previous row. And then just make single crochets all the way around again. Then when you are at the end, skip the slip stitch and insert in the stitch with the stitch marker, so your first single crochet. Work rounds of single crochet, close your rounds with a slip stitch, and then turn your work and work your way back. So we always turn our work after a round of single crochet. And keep working until the bottom is 2 inches or about 5 centimeters, or the length you like it to be. So keep working single crochets until the trim is 5 centimeters or 2 inches in length, and then I'll meet you back and show you how to finish your piece. When the bottom part is 2 inches or about 5 centimeters, or the length that you prefer, then you can bind off, cut your yarn, and your top is done. If you like this tutorial, give me a thumbs up, and if you want to see more of my tutorials, then subscribe to my channel, click the red subscribe button and the bell button next to it so you never miss another video. If you have a request for a next tutorial or a question, let me know in the comments down below. See you next time. Bye.